One day, after a school trip, Dre discreetly follows Chung and his crew to their neighborhood, hoping to get them back for all the torture they have caused him. Chung and his crew follow Dre, who is running for his life until they finally catch him, corner him in a gated compound, and start beating him up even after he falls over in pain. However, when Chung prepares to deal Dre the final blow, Mr. Han shows up out of nowhere. Today we will be recapping the 2010 movie, The Karate Kid. The movie opens with Sherry Parker, who got a work transfer to Beijing, together with her 12-year-old son, Dre Parker, excitedly prepares to leave her hometown, Detroit, behind and start a new life on a new continent. After finishing packing all their belongings, Sherry enthusiastically bids farewell to her friends and neighbors, while the anxious Dre shares an emotional farewell with his best friend. After a long flight, the Parkers get to Beijing and are received at the airport by a company representative who escorts them to their apartment, gets them settled, and tells them to seek the building super, Mr. Han, for any questions before she leaves. As they familiarize themselves with the new environment, Dre meets and befriends a new boy named Harry, who invites him to come play with them in the park later. Moments later, as Sherry hops in the shower, she realizes that there's no hot water and sends Dre to find the super so that he can come and fix it as soon as possible. Dre walks around the building, trying to locate Mr. Han, and manages to do so after some confusing encounters with people who don't understand English at all, and asks him to fix the hot water, but the super completely ignores his request and doesn't even interact with him. Giving up, Dre wanders around for a bit and makes his way to the park to meet up with Harry, but is distracted by a beautiful girl named Mei Ying. Then, Dre plays basketball with some kids and ping pong with some old men, all the while trying to impress Mei, who sits on a bench by the side of the park, practicing her violin. After some time, Harry encourages Dre to talk to Mei. Dre then goes over to her to introduce himself, and the two chit-chat a bit, inadvertently attracting the attention of a boy named Cheng, who has a crush on Mei and is unreasonably overprotective of her. Then Chung marches over to Mei, starts scolding her for wasting time, and screams at her to keep practicing, which prompts Dre to stand up for Mei. However, this backfires as Chung flips out on Dre and, together with his crew, beats Dre up despite his efforts to fight back and defend himself. Dre returns to his apartment with a black eye, sneaks in while his mother is sleeping, and is forced to cover it up with his mother's makeup when he goes to school the next morning. At the school, he is welcomed by the vice principal, Ms. Po, who gives him a brief orientation, right after which he joins the rest of the students in the compound, but is dismayed to see Chung also attends the school. At lunchtime, Mei comes over to Dre to chit-chat a bit. Later that day, Dre practices kung fu at his home as Mr. Han finally comes to fix the hot water. As he does his maintenance work, Mr. Han quietly notices Sherry and Dre getting into a fight over Dre's jacket that was thrown on the ground. The next day, Dre manages to avoid Chung by carefully navigating his way around the school and stumbles into the auditorium where he finds Mei practicing violin for her upcoming show at Beijing Academy of Music. There, Dre and Mei hang out for a bit, and as Dre leaves, he accidentally runs into Chung and his crew, who out of nowhere threaten him to stay away from them, spill out the contents of his bag, and kick it away as a warning. The next day, as the excited Sherry continues to mention all the good parts of their new life in Beijing, hoping to lift her son's spirit, Dre sees Chung learning kung fu and realizes that he can't even join the Kung Fu Academy to learn the one thing he's always wanted to master, and flips out on his mother, telling her how much he hates Beijing and expresses his wish to get back to America, which Mr. Han overhears. One day, Mr. Han rescues Dre from a fight with Chung and his crew, takes him to his home, and uses ancient Chinese medicine to treat all of Dre's wounds and make him feel better instantly. Then, deciding that Chung's kung fu teacher, Master Lee, needs a talking to about the boy's behavior, Mr. Han accompanies the scared Dre to the Kung Fu Academy. There, Mr. Han observes as the teacher instructs the students to use their skills without remorse and mercy to hurt their opponents. Once Master Lee learns of Mr. Han's identity as the man who beat up his students, he challenges the maintenance man to a fight right there and then. Mr. Han turns down the challenge, proposes that Dre will fight in the open kung fu tournament, and convinces Master Lee to get his students to back off and leave Dre alone in the meantime. Dre is shocked to hear about this arrangement, but instantly gets excited about the prospect once he learns that Mr. Han will teach him kung fu. The next day, Dre sprints to Mr. Han's home for his first day of training and is confused to see a car parked inside Mr. Han's living room. For the next few days, as the first step of training, Mr. Han has Dre drop his jacket to the floor, pick it, and hang it up continuously, forcing him him to do it with a good attitude, even after the young boy apologizes and admits how wrong he was for fighting with his mother about picking up his jacket. One day, May invites Dre to a local festival, for which Sherry buys 3 tickets and invites Mr. Han to accompany them, to the dismay of Dre. At the festival, while Sherry and Mr. Han enjoy the show, Dre discreetly meets up with May, spends time with her, convinces her to come to his tournament, and the two kiss. The next day at practice, finally having had enough of doing the same thing over and over again, Dre proceeds to quit training, declaring that he couldn't continue this way anymore. Mr. Han then tells Dre that he wasn't just punishing him with the jacket movement, and instead demonstrates that he was training his muscle memory through the seemingly simple movement, sharing that Kung Fu is in every part of life's movement and depends on focus and maturity as opposed to force. A couple of days later, Mr. Han takes Dre on a long trip to a temple in the mountains where he learned everything he knew about Kung Fu as a boy, to drink from the dragon well. There, the boy is fascinated to see many people mastering the skills of Kung Fu, learns that calmness comes from within and is the main virtue of Kung Fu, drinks from the dragon well, and trains there for a few hours. In the next few days, Dre continues to train vigorously and starts to build his competence until Mr. Han gives him a day off. On his day off, Dre finds May stressing about her audition, scheduled for the next day, convinces her to cut class and takes her around the city, trying to get her mind off things and relax. However, a few hours into their excursion, May is notified that her audition has been moved up to that evening and rushes back to her school to meet with her father, who has been waiting there to take her to the audition, extremely disappointed by her actions. At the audition, even though May does really well, she approaches Dre afterwards, and upon her father's request, informs him that she can no longer be friends with him as he is a bad influence. Devastated, Dre goes to see Mr. Han and is shocked to see him drunk, depressed, and smashing his car. After calming down, Mr. Han shares that he had lost both his wife and his 10-year-old son in a car accident and blames himself as he was the driver and was too distracted by a silly argument with his wife, which rendered him unable to regain control of the car. After sympathetically listening to him, Dre gets his teacher's mind off the pain by continuing the training and engaging him in something that he loves. For the next few weeks, Dre continues to train extensively and vigorously, both in the rain and in the sun and in different landscapes, and masters a few important skills. As the day of the tournament nears, Mr. Han advises Dre that winning is not as important as trying hard and gives him a white Kung Fu wardrobe to motivate him. The teacher then helps Dre write an apology letter in Chinese and takes him to May's house to apologize to her and her father, which goes a long way to show his remorse and persuade Mr. Ying to allow his daughter to attend the tournament. At the tournament, different rounds are lined up where 2 opponents meet, and the winner continues on to the next round to face a different opponent by random selection. Master Lee shows up with his group of students, and each goes through the rounds easily, displaying their artful skills. As the rounds go on, Dre also positively surprises himself and the crowd, and with Mr. Han's support and coaching through the rules, advances through to the next series of rounds. After a tough day of fighting, Dre finally makes it to the final round and watches as one of Master Lee's boys, Liang, completely obliterates his opponent in the semi-final to advance to the final and be set up with him. Master Lee then pulls Liang aside and tells him to destroy the boy and end his chances. Liang gets on stage and after a few minutes of fighting, jumps up and brutally kicks Dre's in the leg, breaking it and causing the boy to fall over crying in pain. Dre is then sent to the infirmary in the back and after an examination is told that he can never return to the fighting scene. Sherry and May, who were cheering on Dre in the stands, rush into the infirmary to check on him and comfort him until the injured boy asks for a minute to talk to his teacher. When left alone with Mr. Han, Dre begs him to use the ancient Chinese healing techniques so that he can feel better and return to the fight. However, Mr. Han is not willing to, citing he can no longer watch the boy get hurt, congratulates him on his achievements, and tells him to walk away as there's nothing more he needs to prove. Out of desperation, Dre confides in his teacher that he is deep down filled with fear and that he needs to finish the fight so that he can prove to himself that he has grown and matured throughout his training into becoming a better, stronger person, which convinces the teacher to apply the healing techniques. Mr. Han starts the fire cupping, while the host announces on stage, giving Dre 2 minutes to return to the fight, or that Master Lee's team will win the trophy by default. Moments later, Dre is cheered by the crowd as he walks into the arena to presume the fight. Master Lee then chooses Chung to fight Dre, as Liang has been disqualified for the dangerous foul he committed on Dre Cheng, and Dre start the fight and put on a strong show as both get good hits on each other and tie the score. Then Dre gets the upper hand as he skillfully forces Chung off the stage and leads the competition 2-1 until Master Lee pulls Chung aside and directs him to hit Dre in the injured leg and break it once and for all. As the fight resumes, Chung manages to follow the order and breaks Dre's leg, forcing the young boy to fall down, crying in pain and tying the score. However, as the crowd waits in hushed anticipation, with with encouragement from Mr. Han, Dre gets up, manages to balance himself on one leg, just like the way he saw the Kung Fu masters in the mountains, flips and hit Chung, causing his opponent to fall and giving himself the winning point. The crowd, including Sherry and May, cheers the brave young boy as Chung takes the trophy and respectfully gives it to Dre. Outside of the ring, Master Lee's students approach Mr. Han and salute him as a show of their respect to the frustration of their teacher. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our video. Watch the next recaps on the screen and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.